These protests that started over a week ago came out of nowhere. They were a surprise to everyone. And now that's not to say that economic protests don't take place in Iran. Even over the last few months, we've seen small protests over joblessness, over rising prices. But what was significant about these protests and a surprise was how fast, far and wide they spread, and also the demographic. Yes, you had students, yes, you had young people, but you also had working class family. The lower echelons of society were calling the government into question, and these people are usually the supporters of the regime. So, will there be more protests? In my opinion, not for the time being, but those economic problems are still there, and they're not going away anytime soon unless there's a major overhaul.
Amir, we're talking about Iranians simply coming up short at the end of the month here and others struggling to find jobs. Now keep that in mind as you look at this. And it's an Instagram account called The Rich Kids of Tehran, showing exactly that. Young and extravagant kids in the Iranian capital. They're driving fast cars, they're wearing expensive watches, eating pricey meals, all out there for everyone to see, bragging essentially. How important was this wealth disparity towards these protests and these allegations of corruption?
It played a huge factor. In fact, some would argue that it was the main factor. Now, that Instagram account may be somewhat of a joke, but it does highlight the huge gulf between the rich and the poor. While some are flaunting, as you say, their expensive watches and expensive cars, others are struggling to put food on the table. It also highlights the importance of social media in Iran. If we look back at the last major upheaval, unrest, 2009, a disputed election, back then, only around 1 million people had access to smartphones. Today, that number stands at around 30 million. So that's a huge change. And also, Iranians have access to what's going on, and they know what's going on in the rest of the country and in the rest of the world. Now, very significant in a country where media and communication is controlled by the state. And that's why we saw government trying to slow down internet speeds to help ease the unrest. And seemingly this tactic did work.